Before starting any service work, always remember to unplug the system and turn off the water. Starting with a 3/8 nut driver, we want to remove the soap valve mounting plate. It is secured down by two number 10 nuts. On opposite corners of the plate, there is only a total of 2. Be sure to set hardware to the side. The plate is free, you may bring it out and give yourself more space to work on. Ultimately, we're going to remove these screws that are mounting the soap valve, but a couple things I want to point out before we proceed. One being, we need to locate where the wires are being connected, because you will have what's called a wiring harness to install the new soap valves. Most of the time, your harnesses will be bunched together. You can simply cut the zip tie, as I did, to free the harnesses, as I did. Because this is the most important step in replacing the MAC valves with the new ASCO valve, we want to identify 2 total harnesses labeled wash and soap, and identify 1 labeled rinse, and identify 1 labeled self-clean. We have rinse, wash, and self-clean here, so I may start removing the already connected wires. So, as you can see, the main valve is removed, front valve is removed, and again, you want to identify the wiring harnesses they came from. So we have self-clean, a wash and a soap, and a rinse cycle. Then, we can remove the old soap valves using a Phillips head screwdriver. Then you'll want to make sure you set the mounting plate and its hardware off to the side, because all of this will be reused with the new valve. Once the plate's been released, you may start pulling the tubing from the valve to the solution container. If you have to snip it, you may, as this will be easier to put back on versus remove. Alright, all valves are removed. Solution tubing that goes to the jug set to the side for later. And what you have left is the solution tubing to the aspirator on the left side. And your 3 wires you're going to reconnect the new valves to. 2 things to identify. Number 1, you may cut this green ground wire as the system's already grounded. Next, and very important to identify, is each valve is going to have an in and an out. And as you can see here on the valve, there's the in, and the other one will be the out. I like to call it high in, low out. So it's very important to keep that consistent and identify that on both valves. And what we're going to do is then mount these to the plate by putting them back on in that fashion. First one's on. And then again, in, high, low, out. You want to make sure you add the second valve in the same order. Now that both valves are installed on the plate, you want to connect the tubing so that we set them up in the correct orientation. So again, back to the high in, low out. The tubing inside the system will want to be connected to the right of the valve by simply sliding it on. And then also, second valve, perfect. And then, you may go ahead and use the tubing that goes to the jug and connect it on the high side in. In your system, it is standard that the back valve is responsible for the UP side and the front valve is responsible for the self-clean. So your next step is going to be to wire the UP side. I start with the UP side first since it's the back. So take one of the red wires coming from the new valve, go ahead and slide on one of these supplied Scotch locks. If you don't have Scotch locks, you may use wire nuts, but Meritech will supply these if necessary. And then proceed to identify your wash harness and connect that to the red wire first. Once both wires are pressed up all the way into the Scotch lock, take a pair of channel locks and tighten them down. And this will automatically splice those two wires together. You will then repeat the step for the second wire coming out of the back valve, again the UP valve, and attach to the same harness with the black wire that's left, but also pull in the harness here with the two soldered and electrical tape wires that are left loose. Starting with the black one, the red one, and the black wire from the wash harness. All three wires will then go into a second Scotch lock. Once those are in, clamp down. Now your back UP soap valve is wired. And then repeat the steps on the front valve, your self-clean valve, by identifying the self-clean harness located right here. And then repeat by taking one red wire and then one red wire from the harness. And then your last red wire with your black harness wire, and the last wire loose from your rinse harness. And that is all. Clean up any excess parts left over from the old valve. Take your plate assembly place it back on the studs at the bottom of the equipment